Metro ride or meal, you must be wondering what does that mean? That means is either you ride on the Namma metro or you have food. Yes, it's become that serious now. The fare hike was in the IT hub of this country, the Silicon Valley, Bengaluru. In Bengaluru, for many, a metro ride now comes at the cost of a meal. Commuters are struggling, forced to choose between getting to work by Namma metro or keeping their food budget intact. 1 month since the fare increase, citizens and commuters in Bengaluru took their protest inside the metro on 9th of March, holding placards and banners saying, "We demand a rollback of metro hike." The protesters highlighted the fact how not only had the hike burnt holes into an average commuter's pocket, the major impact of the metro price hike had to be borne by women and the people with low incomes. A survey by Greenpeace claims that Bangaloreans are paying as much as transport as they do on a daily meal. The overall impact, according to Greenpeace, has the overall ridership has now dropped by 13% with a significant 20% decline in February alone, and it's now become a question of either you eat or you ride by that metro. The Greenpeace survey reveals a shocking reality, and which is how 72.9% of the respondents said that their transport costs after the Namma metro price hike now equals or exceeds their one-time meal expense. That's the percentage of people, ladies and gents. That's why I read that again. The other findings are, and on your screens right now, as follows: 40.4% of respondents use the metro as their primary mode of transport. 62.9% rely on public transport, metro and buses combined. 73.4% spend 50 to 150 rupees daily on transport. 68% of respondents said that the fare hike made metro travel expensive. 75.4% cut down on non-essential travel due to rising costs. 38.2% women have reduced their non-essential travel due to metro fare hike in Bangalore. A majority believe the fare hike is unjust and totally impacts urban mobility. The rising fares are forcing many to reconsider their mode of daily transport. Parents are now thinking of changing school so that it's closer, you can walk to school. Why take the metro? While workers are switching to alternative transport, costlier and more polluting. The protesters argued Bengaluru needs more investment in public transport, not fare hikes. They warned that shifting costs onto commuters will only worsen congestion and pollution. Instead, they demand measures like congestion charges and sticker parking rules to raise funds. The protesters gathered at Kengeri metro station and marched silently inside trains to register their protest with messages like "Unfair hike, unfair cities," a powerful demonstration of the people's struggle. You know what? Metro was once a symbol of inclusive and accessible transport. It is now pushing people away, making people desperate, increasing traffic congestion, pollution and carbon emissions. The big question is, will the government blink, or will the metro become a luxury that only a few can afford? And how sad is that? Dr. Ashish Verma, convener of the Sustainable Transportation Lab at the Indian Institute of Science, is with us, and Shashidhara from Bangalore, who is an IT professional and who's been very, very involved in this entire Namma metro crisis. He is also on the broadcast. A very, very warm welcome to both of you. Professor Verma, considering you've
Thank
done
you, Sudha.
studies, it's my pleasure, sir. Professor, sir, tell me something. When this story was being discussed in the newsroom, everyone said it's exaggerated. How can it be possible? I want to come to you, sir. For me, who's privileged, who can sit in an AC office, and for many like us, they will say, what is there, a meal? I mean, it will cost like what, 20 bucks, which is not true. But explain it to how a metro ride is now more expensive than a meal. Professor Verma, over to you. Then I go to Shashidhara.
Thank you, Sudhaji. It's always a pleasure to be on your show, and good to see Shashidhara ji again on the show. Yes, for people like us who are well off enough to the rise of fare hike in terms of our choices and our affordability to the meal. But for many people, I always we can always categorize the commuters into choice riders or captive riders. So there is a good section, a large section of people in the city who are predominantly captive riders, in the sense that they are dependent on public transport for their daily need in terms of accessing their livelihood, their location of job or business or education, for their children and so on. For them, this fare hike means a lot in terms of their, overall economic prosperity, their ability to be able to, secure their means of livelihood, the ability for their children to be able to access education. In last, month, as this whole conversation has been happening, I have been on several public forums also. I was, speaking in one of the forum by, say, Bangalore committee. And there also, when we hear testimonies, actual testimonies of how the commuters have been affected, it's not just meal. There are people who have decided to change their job or the location of their housing in some cases where they can, so as to be able to still
What
afford
an
their
impact.
daily accessibility
Professor
needs.
Verma, that is a terrible impact. I was just thinking
That
when
is a
you were,
terrible impact.
my
And
child
we
goes to
also,
school and
yeah,
metro is safe, there is less pollution, it is easy, there is no traffic woes. But
and it
today,
is fast. It is
it's
fast
fast.
and reliable
Yeah, so
option.
I know I can calculate my child's time that when the bell rings, he or she enters the school. But today, I have to change his or her school. I mean, that is really such a terrible impact.